Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
All right, welcome back to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. This is part 2 with country music singer Matt Marinchick, who lives in Nashville, and he was nice enough to have an interview with me before all of us pharmacists come down to Nashville, starting probably this Thursday coming up. So what I wanted him to do was take us kind of on a tour so that you know better as you get to Nashville and like, okay, well, I've got free time this day and this day. What places should I visit? So Matt, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast.
Thank you so much.
So let's start with the difference between the kind of performances you give. So sometimes you're called on by a group or a place, and that's invitation only, we'll call it. And then there's other times where you are downtown on Broadway, kind of living the dream. So can you tell me a little bit about the difference between the shows?
Yeah, there's all different types. There's actually a third type. So I do the regular Broadway gig where you have a kind of a weekly routine show that you do at a certain bar. There's also private shows, which a lot of people call them house concert, where you go to someone's house, they invite people over. These people either pay an admission or they buy your CD as a kind of like a guarantee that you'll make some money doing this, and you do that. Or you have, I do a lot of private shows, which are considered corporate gigs, where there'll be a company that might have an event, or they might have just a party in general, and I'll get asked to come in and set up my stuff and play for, however many, 2, 3, 4 or more hours. Usually 4 is where I like to draw the line. But yeah, this upcoming week, I'll be playing a couple of those. So that's pretty much the 3 different types of shows, unless you're, on tour playing stadiums and arenas. And
Sure. Well, tell me a little bit about first, before we get into the week. So we're going to have a ton of pharmaceutical corporations that are paying up to probably $48,000 just for the space that they're going to have on the floor at the convention center. How does someone get in touch with you if they're a corporation and they hear you, and then later for one of their corporate events, they want to bring you down?
Generally, the way it's worked for me is people either contact me through email or my phone number, or they get my business card, or they go onto my website and send me a message, or Facebook. I've got them. I'm playing a gig next week that I got a message on Instagram. So it's just getting in touch with me and, figuring out the details. If it's an opportunity that I'm available for, or that actually I can do, and then hashing out the details, and then that's pretty much all that happens.
Okay.
And then I come and play after that.
All right, sounds good. So let's start with this Thursday coming up, which is, let me give a date, because it's going to be, I'm going to go backwards from St. Patrick's Day. So 17, 16, 15. Okay. So it should be March 15th. Right.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about the Famous Saloon. You're going to be playing there from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
That is a newer bar downtown. It's actually on the corner of Broadway and 2nd Avenue. And it used to be another bar, and before that, it was another bar before that. I ended up getting this gig because the booking person there was someone that I knew that played downtown, and they ended up changing their careers into more of a booking agency kind of thing, and asked me if I could play there. I did. I love the sound there. It's a really cool looking bar. It's kind of like just kind of a cool older feel, but it's big, and they have some really cool artwork. It's just a good vibe inside there. So I started playing there, and I really liked it, and I've been playing there for about a little over a year now, and I've really enjoyed my time and the people there.
Okay, so that one's down on Broadway and 2nd. And
2nd, yeah.
Yeah, so let's maybe, before we even start talking about that, so somebody comes into town, can you walk us down Broadway? Because it's not terribly long.
No, it's not.
I was running, when I was there in the mornings, I would run down Broadway, run up to Vanderbilt University, come back down, and I'm doing the half marathon on Saturday. So tell me a little bit about Broadway and kind of orient us, because we would come down, I think, from Sheridan down the street to the top with the Legends Bar as the anchor, and then we would go left from there. So tell me a little bit about Broadway and kind of where somebody should start, besides coming to see you, of course.
Yeah, of course. After you've seen me at all my shows, from about First Avenue to Fifth Avenue, 5 blocks, and they're not big New York City blocks. They're shorter blocks. There is bars and restaurants on both sides of Broadway, and really it starts at Legends, like you said, on Fifth Avenue, and there's a bar. Every store, there's probably, I always guess there's probably 40 or more bars. I think there's got to be more than that, but I always say 40. But there's a bar next to each bar. And in those bars, there's 4 floors, and those bars are in there. And so there's a lot of different places to go, and each floor and each bar has live music. And then when you get to the end of Broadway, actually right next to the end, there is a road called Second Avenue, and Second Avenue has another row of bars and restaurants, and which have multiple floors and rooftop bars and all that kind of stuff. So if people always say, well, where should I go? A lot of people like to go to Tootsie's because they've heard Tootsie's so many times, but there's so many great bars, and I wouldn't tell anybody not to go anywhere. I tell everyone to go every single bar they can go to as much time they have. And then after that, take note of the ones you like and go back to those. And or if you like a certain style or feel or drink that they have or a band that plays there a certain often, go back to those bars, support the things you like. Like, don't go waste your time at a place where you don't feel like, you like the stuff going on, and then end up, just leaving, not feeling like you had a great time. So that's the best way to do it. There's more and more bars coming up. There's probably about four more bars coming in the next few months. So it's just a constantly growing industry in both the entertainment and the bar/restaurant world, which is really exciting.
Okay, so Famous Saloon is going to be on Thursday. That's on 2nd Avenue and Broadway, 11 to 2. Yeah. Now, Friday, you're at the Westin Hotel from 5 to 9 p.m. How do you get a gig with a big corporation like that? Like, that's the Westin.
Okay.
Like, that's worldwide, It
was kind of cool. I was playing downtown, actually, and a guy that was sitting in the crowd said, I do the booking for a new hotel coming into town, and I would love it if you would come and play. So I started doing that, and it's a really nice bar with really great food, and it's more of a laid back. They want more of a laid back feel. So for me, I love that because I get to play a ton of songs that I really, really like to play, and I grew up playing a lot of songs my dad listened to and taught me and had me listen to James Taylor, Jim Croce, Dan Fogelberg, Cat Stevens, Gordon Lightfoot, like a lot of Billy Joel, Elton John, like just kind of like singer-songwriters of the 70s kind of feel. So it's a cool place for me to be able to do that. And that became a regular thing. And then they also have me with my band playing on the rooftop sometimes, but that won't be this week. They're renovating the rooftop. It's a really awesome view of the whole city, and you're playing to a nice crowd. So it's got a lot of it's 2 different feels. One, the upstairs is a little more rocking. The downstairs where I'll be in the main bar is going to be very laid back and chill. So
yeah, you talked about that, and I remember going in where there were some bars where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 21 and I just got my license, and I'm person to person, and it's just like sweaty, just crazy mess. And then there's other bars where I could sit down the whole time, and I just really enjoyed it. So it sounds like that's more of that feel where I get to kind of sit down, hang out, maybe have dinner, maybe have some something to drink. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, and then Saturday. It's probably good you're not on Broadway. I can't imagine that craziness. You've got 40 bars, Nashville, March Madness, and St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. I've done it before, and it was a mess. I was really happy that somebody asked me to play an event out of town. No offense to everyone going down there and working through that, but once you've done it, it's something you just want to say you've done before.
Okay.
Do it every week or every week.
I understand. It's kind of like Vegas, where there's the tourists go down the strip, and then there's the locals that have their midtown, and just like Nashville has its midtown. All right. Well, Sunday you're at Margaritaville from 3:30 to 7. Let me tell you a little story first. So my wife and I went for our 8th wedding anniversary. We were out at the Sheraton. We would turn left at Legends, and then we would come to Margarita, which is on 3rd or is it on 4th?
It's on 4th and Broad.
Okay, so it's on 4th and Broad, and this is just something that I'm so impressed that you're on Broadway. Like, there is not a bad singer there. Like, so like to get on Broadway is one thing, but that you're getting so many gigs, you're tremendous talent, because everybody's so good there. But Margaritaville, it's kind of open, and you're in the corner a little bit, and it's obviously Margaritaville's pretty chill. But tell me a little bit about how you got that gig, because that's one of those ones where people will hear you from the street and like, oh, that guy's really good, because you're right next to the door, and then they'll come in, and that's how we came in. We heard you first, and then we came in. Cool.
Well, thank you very much, first off. But it's that place. A lot of people like to play at because it's a good crowd. There's always a good crowd because all the windows are open. You're right there next to everybody walking by, and it brings a lot of people in. And I actually got that gig because a buddy of mine who had moved down here at the same time, we sat down at the computer and started researching where we could play. We had already been downtown looking at all the bars, and we looked up Margaritaville. We sent them a list as a duo that we could play as a duo, and they said, well, there's a 6-month waiting list for people that want to come and play here. We're like, okay. So we just kind of let it slide. And, we were playing it. We played some other stuff, and then it kind of went our separate ways. And I was still playing gigs, and then got contacted to start doing this duo on a Monday at noon. And,
best spot of the week.
yeah. So that's how it started. And then it moved to Saturdays and Sundays. And then we ended up splitting them. He was doing Saturdays and I was doing Sundays. And he went a different route, and I kept the Sundays because I enjoyed it so much being down there and that kind of feel. I don't know that much Jimmy Buffett, but because everyone's like, oh, if you play Jimmy Buffett, you have to know every Jimmy Buffett song. I said, well, this is just one of the 35 gigs I do. This isn't like my main priority. So I have some cool kind of beachy kind of island songs, but I'm not a Jimmy Buffett expert. So if anyone asks, I can play a few, and that's it.
Well, I just asked you to play the dog song every time I saw you. So, but no, it just seemed to fit with your personality too. You just seem like for such a big guy, because when you put boots and hat on, you're like 7'2", 7'4", and so you're just a chill guy hanging out on the side, and then you like stand up, you're like, good gracious, all right. So, but Margaritaville, 3:30 to 7. I'll probably definitely be down there for that Sunday to come visit with you. But awesome. Tell me a little bit about on Monday. There's a number of people that are going to be staying till Tuesday. The conference doesn't end till then, I think. Okay. Tell me a little bit about Cafe Fontanella and then the Mandrell Mansion. I'm going to date myself as being 45 years old, and I saw the Mandrell sisters when they were on TV, and that was a big thing for us to watch that stuff. So tell me a little bit about Cafe Fontanella and that gig. Okay, so that is it's outside of downtown. If you want to get away from that, it's not too far. I would say 10, maybe 15 minutes north of downtown. There is a mansion it was owned by Barbara Mandrell, now the family, and it's on this beautiful set of land. This area has a winery, a distillery, an Italian restaurant, some shops. If you want, they have places to stay. If you ever come back, it's like a kind of bed and breakfast kind of feel. And then there's walking trails and zip lining and all this kind of things you can do there. But this Italian restaurant is Cafe Fontanella. It has a bar and a restaurant. It's a really nice food. It's one of my favorite places to play because they give me a free meal there, and I love chicken parmesan, and they have some of the best I've ever had. So I do that, and it's only a 2-hour show, and it's a lot more like one of those easy listening gigs with
more originals in that one. So you hear a lot more original music. I like that. I like that place. So
okay, and that's 6 to 8 p.m.
on
on Monday night. And then
right.
for those people that are still around on Tuesday, you said you got 2 gigs. So the stage from 11 to 2. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, the stage is one of like I guess you could call one of the main bars downtown where people like to go as tourists. It's a big bar, and they have multiple floors. I'll be on the rooftop that day, so hopefully it's really nice out. Just started doing the rooftop again.
Okay.
Last week, and it was slammed, which was nice, and had a really good time playing up there with a band. That'll be the one time this week that I'll be with my band, and we do that on the rooftop. And it's not just like out there where you just get rained on. It's 80% of the bar is inside, and then they have a rooftop patio where you can stand outside and listen to music if you wanted to as well.
Okay, and then you were someplace else at 7 to 8:30 p.m.?
Yeah. I do a lot of work with a restaurant chain in town called Puckett's.
Okay.
And they have a seafood restaurant in Franklin, Tennessee, which is about 20 minutes south of downtown, which is literally probably the best seafood, in my opinion, in Nashville. It's brought in daily from the Gulf. Everything's very fresh. Oyster bar, it's really good seafood. And I do a thing there every Tuesday for the last few years where I come in for an hour and a half and entertain the crowd with some older stuff, a lot of older stuff, older country, older singer-songwriter songs, and then a lot of originals. And it's probably one of the best restaurants that I play at. And they seem to like me there because they keep having me back. So it's been fun playing there.
Awesome. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about are your 3 albums. I picked up your first album when I went into Nashville, and then there was Big and Bigger. So can you tell us a little bit about each of the albums and kind of how your progression through them?
Yeah, the first album, which was just called Matt Marinchick, came out literally as I was coming to Nashville. So it was my, I guess I don't want to say my take on everything, but it was just a collection of songs that I had written over years of writing and decided to release. It was stuff that was going on in my life and ideas that I had written that album. And it was a good way to get into a lot of doors. It was a tool that was able to get me opportunities to write with other people, to get some opportunities to play at different venues. Having that was really great for me. And after being down in Nashville for a couple of years, I ended up getting signed to a record label, and we recorded a lot of songs. And after doing that, I was able to put out my first EP, which was called Big, and I really loved it. It was great. The musicians were great, just like everyone's albums has great musicians because there's so many great musicians down here. But that was my first album, and I still had songs that I had recorded that I had not released yet, and I was like kind of really excited to get that going. But different path, so I ended up leaving the label just because I wanted to go a different route. So I did that, and I had these songs that I had bought the rights back to, and finally just now I'm getting the chance to release all that. So that's my third album, which is called Bigger, which I'm really excited about. They were recorded by the same group of musicians and everything, but I had originally set this up to be this third album was going to be my favorite album, like kind of hoping that people would feel better about the latest thing. Like you will continue to want to come out with something better and better and better. And I had separated the songs that I had recorded while with the label as like, okay, they're going to like this, but then when this new one comes out, they're going to love it. So like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was my idea. So this album is about maybe a month and a half or 2 out on the circuit of playing that I've been selling it. So I've enjoyed letting people hear some of the original songs acoustically, and then taking it home and hearing the full band versions and everything. So
cool. All right. Yeah. Well, Matt Marinchick, thanks for being on the Pharmacy Leaders podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.